And welcome back. We're moving into our third conversation for the morning, something very important as well. Student advocacy and social responsibility. How often do we do this? And in with us to tell us more about it, to talk to us more about it, is none other than Nikoli Edwards. That's a cool name, man. This guy is actually the chairperson, Policy and Advocacy and Projects, Commonwealth Youth Council, UWE, St. Augustine Guild of Students. Man, that's a long one. That's a long one.
Sure.
But Nikoli, it's so nice to have you in, my brother. Welcome and good morning.
Thank you very much for having me. And good morning to all the viewers locked on right now, yes.
Definitely. Buddy, you know, when it comes to student advocacy and the social responsibility, it goes a long way, you know, especially for the youths. Now, talk to us. How is this like for us? What is it like for the youth?
No, definitely student advocacy and understanding your social responsibility is not an easy thing at all. There are a lot of persons that we see on the forefront in different positions, advocating, fighting for rights and justice in many cases. But it is indeed a task to get to that point. And a lot of the times we feel as though the average young person may not have the capacity or may be disinterested in advocacy and things like that, fighting for something other than themselves. But we're seeing this every single day in different arenas. So a lot of the times persons criticize young people now because they say they're always just on social media, posting pictures, this, that, and the other. But if you really scan through some persons' profiles, you will see that they actually are aware of the issues taking place and they're writing a note. They may not just be that person who goes out there and fights on the street or in front of these buildings and stuff, but they're doing their part in some way, form, or fashion.
Now, Nikoli, I'm so happy to have this conversation, and I know we're actually getting you after the fact. You went to the University of Belize to talk with some of the students there, talking about exactly this issue. What was that conversation like?
Well, for one, I shared my personal story with them, and that's what always connects people, because when you have someone who has walked the talk, so to say, and understands it firsthand, I go into the explaining to them that yes, it's not going to be an easy ride, but it's something that you have to really prepare yourself for any eventuality, especially. So it may be good, it may be bad, the outcome, but once you're really passionate about what you're fighting for, that's what matters the most. So even if you lose the battle, so to say, the knowledge that you went through this, that you stood for something, that makes it all the much better. The students received the lecture well, and I was very grateful to be invited by the University of Belize.
There's nothing like peer-to-peer education, and we've had conversations with some of the students, and I want to ask, what was your impression in terms of their willingness in being able to be involved as advocates in a country?
Sure. Now, I've heard, well, I met some of these students, they're a part of the student government, and then after the lecture, a lot of persons came up to me one-on-one and was asking me, how do I go about starting an initiative in this regard? How can I become more active? How can I get involved? And I was simply there to impart my knowledge on them. So there are persons, and especially coming to even the World Youth Conference, which that's where we met. I'm seeing just so many vibrant young Belizeans who are coming to the fore and saying that they are here to answer that call, to give a voice to the voiceless, to participate, to care about things that affect not just them, but others around them. So young people are coming forward. Sometimes they need a bit of hand-holding, but for the most part, they are able and ready to do what they need to do to make this world a better place.
And what has been your experience? What made you an advocate, and especially stepping out of the comfort zone of, you know, I know what I have, I'm secure in what I have, if that was the case, to fighting for something beyond just yourself? What gave you that push?
No, I've always had, I guess, good people around me, one, and that is very important. But in 2015, there was an incident that forever changed my life. There was a jailbreak in the city of Port of Spain. Well, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, in case persons haven't realized. So while there was a jailbreak. 3 prisoners escaped. 1 police officer was shot and killed, a prisoner was shot and killed, and then 2 days later, they found the bullet-riddled body of another one. That was my father. father.
Wow.
And he was in remand. And for those who don't understand what remand means, it means that you have been arrested and you're waiting for your court date.
Yeah.
And he was in remand for 6 years. And that just speaks to the criminal justice system that we have in the Caribbean, and you'll find it in many parts of the world, where persons seem to never have their day in court. So he was never able to answer whether he was innocent or guilty for the charges that was brought against him. And in that moment, it really shook me, because I felt as though, what would be my next move? I was working in a very high-profile job. Persons would see me because I used to read
You were a
news.
news anchor.
Yes.
You can say that.
And things of that nature. So, I mean, now I was fearful that I would have been walking around and persons were pointing and saying, well, that's the son of a criminal, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But I felt in that moment that I had an opportunity to either walk two roads. One, that road of just a full public dejection, or two, I could actually make something positive out of this. And I decided to start fighting for the reformation of the criminal justice system, and for young people in particular, because young people are those who are afflicted by the system more than anything. So it was from that point that I really started to revamp my any kind of advocacy efforts that I ever thought about, and started to push very strongly to make Trinidad and Tobago and the world a better place.
Nikoli, you actually hit a nail on the head when it comes to a lot of young people who are actually growing up right now in this country. But going back to advocacy, do you think that with the times and how things are right now, young people are off in how they advocate, or because of how older people grew up and what they know, they're off? Who's off here?
Right. So the latter is what I think it is, because there has been somewhat of a template for advocacy. So you would expect to see persons flocking to the streets and holding up signs and whatnot. But with times changing, you're seeing different ways of advocating the same way. So very creative. When we think about the Black Lives Matter movement and how that is being done, you're seeing persons who are in conflict going up on Facebook Live, and you're seeing it live and direct. So there are different ways to go about it. Now, when you think about the Freedom of Information Act that each country should have in their legislation, young people can actually use that to get information from the state that seems to be withheld for whatever reason. So there are different ways. Some prefer to write in, some prefer to go up on live on Facebook, some prefer to take to the streets. But what we must not discredit whatsoever, all these actions add to the conclusion that we're looking for.
Now, a lot of times people in general, when it comes to being an advocate or stepping out on behalf of whoever or whatever issue, their fear is political victimization. If I speak out against anything, that makes me opposition and anti-government, and perhaps that oftentimes is something that people don't want to have labeled on them. And you spoke of that. You were a high-profile person. You were an anchor with the government press, no less. And you spoke out on an issue that affected all people, not just those who support or don't support the government. Taking that step is a risk in itself, and it's not one that young people or even people who are in established careers are prepared to take. What do you say to that?
Now, it is a risk, but you have to weigh the pros and cons. I had already set out on a path where I was educating myself, where I was starting to try to become independent, so having jobs on the side and doing things, so that if anything were to happen, that I would still be stable in my stuff. And ironically enough, yes, I never toed the line at all when it came to politics, because we have two major political parties, and I used to keep off of commenting on the parties themselves. I would comment on issues. And because of my efforts, actually, the president of Trinidad and Tobago asked me to serve in the Senate of my country. So I was appointed a senator in January of this year, the youngest independent senator in Trinidad and Tobago's history. And well, as it stands, there is a government senators, opposition senators, and independent senators. So you're not aligned to a party whatsoever. And I would go into parliament every time that I have to contribute, and I would knock those who needed to be knocked in a way that was constructive, and at the same time getting the point over and being a voice with voiceless. So there are merits to your advocacy. You never know where it will land you. You can be in parliament, you can be in a high-profile job, in a position that really allows you the freedom and flexibility to take care of others. So, yeah.
And from your perspective, how important is it to build numbers? You know, we see small protests sometimes, whether it's equality or high gas prices, you know. We've had some of the students before speak out against tuition increases or fee increases. but they don't get the numbers, and oftentimes that makes people dismiss it so easily. How important is that? How do you make the best of that?
It is important, but you have to take the first step. In 2015, there was an issue on the St. Augustine campus, UE, where lecturers were withholding our grades because they wanted the university to pay their back pay and whatnot. So we were caught in the crossfire, so to say, and then I remember the head of the West Indies group of university teachers coming to the Guild of Students and asking us to support them, and I was like, how crazy are you? You are withholding our grades and then asking us to support you? Yeah. So I was like, no, you need to make a move on your end and then we can support. And I protested and on campus, and 7 students followed me on campus that day. I was with a bullhorn, walked around the campus, and 7 students followed me. That made news, and there was a lot of attention being placed on the campus, and the very next day the entire campus was shut down because all the halls of residence, their students came out, and it really sparked something. So it was a matter of taking the first step. Yeah. While on that first day I was not able to garner the kind of support that I needed, they came out the very next day, and in short stead we were able to get back our grades.
So persistence beyond the small numbers.
Exactly.
Wow.
You are from the talk that you had with the young people of Belize, we know for a fact that people did listen because we're youth alike. One of the things that I'd like for you to share with Belizean youth is what is a youth social responsibility?
Okay, so especially coming from education, we understand that we go to school, many times persons look toward their education as just simply a gateway to a job. I worked before I went to university, during university I work, and then after I've graduated I'm still working. So for me, a degree was never about just a job. I used my undergrad communication studies degree to help me enhance my communication skills. Now I'm pursuing mediation studies, and it helps me with conflict resolution. So it's about applying what you've learned into real life scenarios. So if you're going to school, your responsibility to society, because had it not been for society you would not be there, is to really put what you've learned into the public domain. Find a way to contribute, to give back. Even if you're not thinking that the man on the corner is the one who sent me to school, he somehow had a part to play by whether it be voting, paying taxes, allowing opportunities for other young people to get access to education. And that's how we need to see it. So don't waste the opportunity of a good university education. Not everyone has that opportunity. So as much as you have it, find ways and means to apply these things. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur, but everyone can put a voice to an issue and take that empirical evidence that they've gotten through their education and apply that to the facts and the statistics and whatnot. And trust me, the university, the student population would recognize this and support and hold that in high esteem.
It's almost a part of developing a sense of worth as well as a young person within society, that you do have a voice, that you can use it, and that being a part of a tertiary level institution like UB or when you were at UE is something that not all young people in the country will be able to benefit from. How do you translate that message? How do you remind people that if you're sitting in an associate level class, a bachelor's level class, you're in a privileged position already and you have to do something about it?
It's really hard a lot of the times because while you're in university, you'll be complaining about tuition increases and all of these different things. And this tends to cloud the fact that, hey, at least I'm still here. Or even when you've graduated and you realize that there aren't enough jobs to match the number of persons graduating. So all of these are real issues that young people are faced with and legitimate issues for their attention. But at the same time, they have to recognize that, okay, yes, my parents may not have been able to go to university before, so I may be a first generation university attendee and things like that. And also it is the responsibility of the lecturers and the leadership of whatever university to ensure that students recognize the importance of their education. Now, if you look at, let's say even President Barack Obama from the US, right? And how he was able to spend his time studying law. He was able to be the president of his student government there and went on to do amazing things. It's because of the experiences that you get in the university system that allows you to go out into society and fight just as hard as you fought within the walls. So if there are clubs and societies, groupings, join them.
Yeah.
Join them and support your student governments there, because they are volunteering. They're not getting paid for that whatsoever. And a lot of times it clouds their schooling and stuff, but they did it because they wanted to be selfless and assist those around them.
There are a lot of young people right now, Nikolai, who are saying right now, you know what, I didn't get the opportunity to go to university, or as a matter of fact, to school.
Sure.
And so I'm listening to you, but there's nothing that I can do because this is all educational.
Sure.
That's the only thing. So the only thing I can do is actually hang out on the block and probably do what I do best, which would probably be to steal or to do something negative. What, from your standpoint or your point of view, would be something positive that that individual can do within their community to change his life around?
Sure. Now, first of all, there are many influential persons who have passed through this world who never attended university, who may have started and then dropped off, right? When we think about the Mark Zuckerbergs and Steve Jobs and persons like them who went on to still be innovators and create magnificent things.
Now we're talking here to Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook,
Yes.
Steve Jobs, Apple.
Yes.
So just for folks to know.
Yes. And they decided that, you know what, I have a talent. So it's incumbent on the individual to figure out what your talent is. What do you think you can offer this world? What do you think you can offer to your community? And you may not have to be able to offer accounting skills or be the best teacher or lecturer, but it may be that you are a good communicator because you can resolve conflict. So having that difficult conversation comes easy to you. So you start by those small things. You may be able to cook well because your parents taught you. So you can turn that into a business, and then, who knows, start feeding the homeless or persons on the block who may not have an opportunity to have a hot meal every day. So there are ways to turn your talents. You have to first understand what your talent is and turn that into something that is tangible and that impacts on the lives of others around you.
Excellent.
All right. And of course, you were only here this week for the youth conference. It
Yes.
closed off last night.
Yes, and I actually won the award for the best participant at the World Youth Conference,
Why
which was
doesn't
shocking.
this doesn't surprise me? I don't know why you're shocked by that. I'm not shocked at all. But it is so wonderful to hear from you and from some of the other young people who are here at the conference just
Yes.
about how you have recognized your power as a young person, how important your role is in the dialogue as to what takes place within your country and the rest of the Caribbean and world. And we appreciate that you came here to spread that message as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nikolai. We'll look out for you. I'm sure we'll see more. All right, we're gonna go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, it'll be for a cultural dance. So stay tuned.